Hey YouTube, welcome back to another video. So this video is a several part series. This is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, you will definitely want to see that before watching this. So check the description, I will have a link down there. Anyways, this is the 18 lot of iPods. And as you can see, they're all in various different conditions and various different functional states. So we're going to be trying to fix some of the ones that are more broken than the others. So the first iPod I'm going to work with is this 64 gigabyte iPod Touch. And the reason for that is because, well, one, a 64 gigabyte iPod Touch 4 would be really cool if I could get that to work. But also, it's the only one with a not cracked screen, so I want to see if it's working or not. And finally, it's clearly been open, so it shouldn't be too hard to get into. I should just be able to lift it up with my fingers. So let's see if we can do that. Okay, I was wondering why it was so hard. It looks like the screws for this metal shield have been removed, so it's just lifting up the entire metal shield with it, which I don't want. So let me get my pry tool here and slide that in between them. So once I got that free, I lifted the display up and I could tell that there was not any screws whatsoever on the shield. But I basically just reconnected the LCD connector several times until I got it to sit correctly because it looked like that wasn't connected. Okay, so I was able to get it to boot up. I don't know if it's going to boot all the way, but I did try to force restart it, but then I realized that since it's not screwed down and the screen isn't applied, the layers of the home button mechanism might not work. So I was holding down this shield with 2 fingers, like that, and then with this finger I was pressing with my fingernail, pressing the actual button itself while I pressed the power button. I almost gave up. It took a while for the Apple logo to show up, but that's very exciting. And the screen doesn't look like I broke the LCD. Or wait, there is a small amount of dead pixels here, but that's not where I hit it with the tool. But yeah, there is a little bit of dead pixels. It doesn't look like it's cracked though. That's not that bad. Let's see if it responds to touch though. So I sped this video up, but this actually took a very long time to actually boot. Okay, I thought this was going to boot loop. I thought it was boot looping because it took so long, but it is turned on. And actually, there's the battery percentage, which you couldn't get on the iPod. So either they did the P-list trick you could do with it, or it's jailbroken. Let's find out. Okay. Oh my gosh, yeah, it is jailbroken. All right, cool. And it has some old apps. We got the old Spotify on here, which doesn't work, by the way. That version of Spotify. Okay, we got the date in the status bar there, which is cool. It's also not the right date, but still cool. Let me see why the brightness is so low. Okay, it had auto brightness, but that might not be working. Anyway, let's see if this is actually 64 gigabytes or not. Okay, it is. And it's on 6.0.1. And since this is a jailbroken iPod, I wonder if it is actually got some SHSH blobs. That'd be really cool if it does. And also, oh my gosh, that is a lot of songs. Wow. And I was right with the home button, having to press it, because you can't really press it when there's no screws pressing everything into place. Yo, we got tap to tweet. I don't know whose account it is, but... and we got the SBS settings, which is cool. Love that. Spotify isn't signed in. I'm so disappointed. Guys, we got Veggie Tales. Also, we pretty much hit the jackpot here. I mean, there's so much music on here. And like most of it has album art. So like most of this was probably actually purchased. That's crazy. Okay, so quick update. It doesn't look like the speakers work, which is really sad. I wanted to listen to some music, but oh well. And the speaker is soldered on, so not too much I can do about that. But I can try maybe one day. But the fact that I got this on and that it's jailbroken is cool in itself. So okay, so we indeed do have blobs for 5.0.1, which is so cool. And since it's running iOS 6.0.1, we can dump the blobs for that. I think that's about all I'm going to do with this iPod for now, but I'll certainly make a later video on it, so yeah. So regardless of whether I can get this iPod fully working or not, we at least have a good screen, which does appear to be an original screen as well, judging by the quality. So yeah, minus that small line of dead pixels, at least we have a good screen, and I mean, hey, we might be able to get it working, so that's cool. Yeah, ignore my Mac running at like 200 degrees in the background, but quick update on this iPod. It does, well, I was able to sit the screen down enough for the home button to sometimes work, but also, like, the big thing I wanted to show is that the dead spot is no longer there. Here, if I can zoom in a little bit. No dead spot, so I assume that was just a pressure mark. It did stay there for a very long time, so I don't really know why, but it clearly wasn't like permanent dead pixels. They did come back, which is cool. So the screen is totally fine. Speaker wires are ripped, I've found out, which is why the speaker doesn't work. So maybe I'll try soldering that on once I'm a little more experienced. And I did seat things down a little more here. You can see it's not perfect, but you know, that's why the home button kind of works. And the volume buttons here, volume down clicks, but it doesn't do anything. Volume up doesn't click, it's like stuck in there, but it sometimes works. There you go. So I don't really know what's going on with that, but I don't think it's a flex cable problem because the power button works, which is part of the same flex cable. So I'm not sure, but yeah, it's just a quick update on this iPod. I also don't know about the battery life. That's the other thing I was going to mention, because it seems to kind of degrade fast, but I can't say for sure because the percentage hack would sometimes cause very inaccurate battery readings. So I'm not sure if it was really as low as it was saying it was. I haven't done a runtime test on this. But yeah, hopefully I can do an update video on this of me fixing it. I think I'm going to use this screen on something else, but yeah, eventually I'll get a different screen for this and fully restore it, hopefully. So, but not anytime soon, so don't expect that anytime soon, but it is something I'd like to do eventually. So the next thing I want to do, seeing that the iPod Touch 4 had an SHSH blob, I want to see if this one does as well, considering this is also a jailbroken iPod. Okay, moment of truth. Does it have blobs or not? Oh, it doesn't. So unfortunately, we can't downgrade this to an unsigned version, but regardless, it's still cool, so the next iPod I'd like to take a look at is this one, which is boot looping. And considering the nature of the boot loop, that it's kind of like an Apple logo and then a fading white screen, I do kind of suspect this might be the NAND, also known as the flash storage. And if that's the case, then obviously the board is just bad. But it's definitely worth a shot trying to restore this. So I'm going to put it into DFU mode and hopefully we can restore it. So I did first see what iOS version it was on and dump the SHSH blobs. And it was actually on iOS 6.1.3 and we dumped the blobs for that. So considering that it did successfully dump the blobs and then it wasn't on the latest version, perhaps there isn't a restore issue, because usually if there is an issue with it restoring, someone would have tried already and it would be on 6.1.6 from them trying to restore it, but it wasn't. So yeah. So here I'm just checking to see if there are any other SHSH blobs saved on a server, and there are not, but it was worth checking. So here I am now creating the IPSW. We backed up the SHSH blobs. Now we're creating the actual restore file using those SHSH blobs. So the IPSW is done being created, so we now just have to put the device in pawn DFU mode and restore it. We have iTunes 11 here, which should work with this. And as you can see, I selected my custom IPSW, and we're now attempting to restore it. So as you can see, the restore did fail, and we got an error that is common with dead NANDs. So at this point, I'm like, oh, it's got to have a dead NAND. But I decided I would try to restore it to the latest 6.1.6 using 3U-Tools, just to make sure. So yeah, that's what I'm doing here. And as you can see, it just did that white flashing thing, and the restore has stopped. So I pretty much confirmed at this point that it does have a dead NAND. You could technically replace the NAND, but it would cost more than the iPod is worth to do so. Not to mention, it's a very difficult repair that I don't know how to do. So this iPod will just be kept for parts, I guess. But oh well, at least we tried. So just a little recap, because it's obviously hard to keep track of all these iPods. It's hard for me to keep track of these iPods and what has what problem. This iPod was the one that was not charging. Like, it would, this is an iPod first generation. It would charge enough to boot, but then once it booted up, it would not charge. And because the charge was so low, it would shut down pretty soon after. But when I was like messing with this iPod, like, this is one where the housing is slightly bent. I just pressed the housing kind of at that bent part, and it suddenly started charging. And I wasn't sure why this was, but I did later off camera, like, I fixed the dead spot on this, and I realized that the pins on the charge port were a little bit, like, there was two pins that were pushed back a little bit. And so I did push them back into place, but I think that they were probably pushed back even further, and when I pressed that, it might have pushed them just slightly close enough to start charging. Which is kind of funny. But yeah, so I restored that here with iTunes, and so we will have to see if it's working or not. So as you can see here, this iPod has been restored, and from the looks of it, seems to work. And so far, it is charging, so that's cool. Let's move on to the next iPod. Now it's time to restore our second iPod Touch first generation. So the cable wasn't going in all the way, and it did seem to charge, but it wasn't connecting to the computer. So I just got my tool and picked out the dirt. There was a lot in there. And after I did that, it did connect to the computer fine. So it just had a lot of dirt in it. And this is the iPod that was disabled, the first generation iPod that was disabled. So we're just restoring it, and hopefully it works. So as you can see, this iPod restored just fine as well. So both of these are working. And I just thought I would mention that the bent housing here that I thought was because of an expanded battery, that's actually not why at all. Like, when I was just messing with it, I realized that this back comes off very easily. I bet it was removed before. And as you can see, the battery's not expanded at all. So the next iPod I'm going to take a look at here is this second generation that only lights up with a white screen. You can't hear any unlock noises, so I assume it's not responding to touch either. A lot of times this happens with water damage. The second and third generation are notorious for surviving a lot of water damage. So the fact that it is turning on but does have issues, there could be really bad water damage. I don't know. It could be another issue. I'm just going to see if disconnecting and reconnecting the screen fixes the problem. So it's honestly been quite a while since I've had to open one of these, and it shows. These are not really easy to open. And people sometimes have asked me, like, what's a good way to open these? How do you do it? I don't know. Like, it's just something that you kind of pick up on as you try several times. But I've broken screens trying to open these iPods countless times before I got the hang of it. And it's very easy to shred that rubber around the screen, which I probably did a little bit here. It's just so hard not to. But yeah, eventually I did get it open after breaking several of my plastic picks. So that sucks. One thing I will say is that it, for me, has been easier to kind of start at the top or the bottom, like I'm doing here. And then and then it also helps to kind of like use several picks. Like I'll often keep one pick kind of wedged in one place, as you can see me doing here, and then use another one just so when you're prying up one part of the screen, another part doesn't snap back into place. And you of course need to be very careful because it's very easy to hit the LCD and crack that when you're prying here. Because you're kind of trying to pry upwards rather like directly upwards, because if you pry kind of to the side, very easy to damage it. But obviously it's pretty hard to pry directly upwards. So it's just something you really have to get the feel for. You can see this piece of my pry tool that got stuck in there, and took a moment for me to figure out how to get it out. But anyways, now that we have the digitizer off, we can start lifting up the LCD. And it was stuck on like more than usual, so I used a very, very light amount of heat because there is adhesive holding that back, and I don't want to break the LCD. And I soon realized, as you're about to see, why it was giving me such a hard time. I ended up lifting it up, but one of the back layers stuck to the bottom there, which has happened before. And the reason it was stuck so good is because it looks like there's like some sort of liquid on that shield, which doesn't surprise me. But yeah, I guess that the liquid was kind of sticky or something and holding it into place extra good. So I just put that layer of the screen back. It might not look the same, but oh well. So now I'm just going to remove that shield so we can remove the LCD and then reconnect it. So as you can see, it still lights up white after disconnecting it and reconnecting it. So it's most likely that this LCD is bad, but I'm going to try a few other things first. So what I'm doing here is I'm peeling up this copper sticker which is stuck to the LCD. It's connecting the LCD and that like metal frame, and once I get that off, the LCD is free and can be removed from the iPod. You can see there is a lot of water damage, and on that backlight panel I noticed a lot of corrosion, so I'm going to clean that off and see if that helps. I'm also just cleaning that back panel, which was stuck to the metal frame with like sticky liquid, so just figured I'd clean it off as well, and clean off the LCD a little bit while I'm at it. I then moved over to the digitizer, decided to clean that as well. There were some peeling pieces of rubber from when I pried it up, which would have just been hanging loose, so I kind of picked those off. And then I'm using some isopropyl alcohol to clean it up because there was some corrosion around the home button area, which I don't think was affecting functionality because the home button worked, but it's definitely good to clean corrosion when you see it. And finally, of course, I'm cleaning off the metal shield as well. So reconnecting the LCD, I'm not reconnecting this properly because I'm just using it to test, but not only is it still lighting up white, we did get some isopropyl alcohol underneath the display, but I mean, I think the display is bad anyways, considering that I can't get it to light up properly. Although it could be the iPod itself, I'm not entirely sure. So I'm now basically just trying to sit the LCD down properly. I remember I installed it properly eventually to see if that would make any difference. I tried to install the digitizer so I could hopefully like force restart it with the home and power button, because sometimes it will light up white when you connect it while it's turned on, which you shouldn't do. It's just that I couldn't turn this off. There was no way for me to turn it off. So, but yeah, basically after all of this trying, I still was getting a white screen. So it seemed like I was out of luck. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but my goal with this lot is to fix these iPods without using any external parts. Like, I'm trying to just use parts from the iPods in this lot. So I'm not going to replace the LCD with another one because I don't have another one from this lot. But I don't even have an LCD laying around anyways, so I am going to try to see if I can get this LCD to work. I also, in a bit, you'll see that I'm going to connect a different digitizer than this one to see if that makes a difference for some reason. But first I figured there's water damage in here, so I might as well check that out. So I am removing the screws holding down the logic board. There's like a top board and a like bottom one, and there's a flex cable, so you have to be really careful. But eventually I was able to get the logic board out so I could inspect it for damage. And as you're about to see, there is a fair amount of corrosion that I had to clean off with isopropyl alcohol. So taking a closer look, you can see the top board has a fair amount of corrosion, and on the bottom it's pretty bad, and there does seem to be a lot around where this sticker is, so I'm about to remove that so I can get the corrosion that might be under that sticker. But yeah, it looks kind of bad. I've definitely seen worse, and you can see some spots on the housing here from the corrosion. So yeah, I'm just going to take my toothbrush and isopropyl alcohol and just clean off any corrosion I see. I also end up removing the speaker. It's kind of like held down with this EMI shield, but like one of the removable ones. So I lifted that up, which revealed some chips, and I cleaned those off. They didn't end up being that corroded, but just in case. And then I cleaned off the housing, of course. And I also took the buttons out to clean them so they would click again, because they weren't clicking very well. But after I cleaned them, they started working. Like a lot of the times with these buttons, the only real issue is just dirt. But there can be other issues, but sometimes you don't have to replace the flex cable and it's just dirt, which is nice, and that was the case here. It is a shame that it's very hard to replace that flex cable because these iPods are hard to open, but since we're already in here, I figured I might as well. So now with the corrosion cleaned out, I can reinstall the motherboard and put the screws to fasten it into place. So as you can see, it's still unfortunately lighting up with a white screen. So I connected the digitizer and still no unlock sounds or anything. So I think that this iPod is done for. I tried a spare digitizer, which is not from the lot. I just wanted to see if maybe the touch would work with that. And it didn't. I didn't hear the noise at least. I tried plugging in headphones because I figured maybe it was just quiet, but it would play through the headphones. Still heard nothing. So yeah, at this point, I'm kind of out of ideas, but I have one more idea to see if maybe this will get the iPod to work again. So there's this little like shield with some capacitors on it on the LCD, and I figured, well, what if those capacitors are corroded, which might cause no display? And in removing this, there's a good chance I might have damaged the display, but at this point, I have nothing left to lose. They didn't look corroded, to be honest, but I did clean them off with isopropyl alcohol just in case. But as you're about to see, that didn't do anything. And it really isn't worth putting this much time into an iPod second generation because they're only worth like 15 bucks at most without any cracks. Like this one with the cracks is probably worth less than 10. But I just wanted to show you the process of me fixing stuff, and I like fixing stuff, so I'm okay with putting more time into things than what is really worth it. And I also just like keeping things out of e-waste, like if this iPod would have ended up working, you know, someone who doesn't have money for a nicer iPod could have bought it. But yeah, not for now. If I ever get a spare LCD, I will certainly try to fix this, but for now it'll just go in my pile of broken iPods. So this video has had a lot of successful repairs and some that were not successful, like this one. But there is still a lot more iPods to work on. Way too many for this video. So I will have a new video coming in a few days, which will be part 3, which will most likely, like almost positively, be the last video in this series. But after I do the third video, there might be videos related to this iPod lot of me fixing individual iPods. But I did think that it might be cool for me to make videos where I'm just trying to not necessarily refurbish them to really nice condition, but just showing you the process of me swapping parts to get semi-working iPods, because that's something I always do, but I don't usually record that. I usually just record me fixing one particular iPod to really good condition. So yeah, this is kind of like a new thing for me. So let me know, did you guys like this type of video? Like, is this something I should make more of? Or do you prefer when I do, you know, just one iPod and fix it up really good? Or do you like seeing this process? Let me know, because I'm open to doing whatever. I have a lot more videos coming, so stay tuned. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video. This is really random, but I just happened to see it in here while I'm recording in this area. This is one of my first cameras, actually. This is, I guess, my third, maybe? I got this, I don't know when I got this, really. It's in terrible condition. Should I try to make a video on this? Like, should I do a test video, or maybe just record one of my normal videos on this? Let me know if you guys would be interested in me making some sort of content about this camera, because it's a pretty cool camera. And it does work, kind of, except the tripod part is broken off. I didn't really know how to use tripods, so I would just like twist it on like this, and then I also didn't know which direction was, like when I was, like when rotating something, I wouldn't know which direction was left and which was right, which sounds really weird. Like I knew my left and right, but I didn't know that in regards to turning, like, you know, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. That didn't make sense to me when I was little. So sometimes I would get confused and I would try to take it off, but I would just tighten it more. And eventually it just kind of like started to crush the like bottom part of the camera. I think if you, yeah, you can like totally lift it up. So, yeah, but anyways, that's all. Oh yeah, and the fact that this is still alive is actually pretty impressive, because any of you who know me know, like, I'm getting better at this, but I'm pretty destructive with technology, especially when I was little. So like most of the tech I had back then is totally just non-existent. I should buy a camera. I'll have to figure out which camera it was. I'll have to buy a camera of the same model as the very first point-and-shoot camera I had. It'd be kind of cool to see. If you guys would like to see videos like that, again, let me know. And if you don't, also let me know. I just want to see what types of videos my subscribers want to see, especially because I have a lot of new subscribers lately. I don't know everyone's interests. So yeah, just let me know. If you have any other completely unrelated video ideas that don't cost like $500 because I'm poor, yeah, let me know. Just drop some ideas. If you're wondering what happened to my first two cameras,
The first one, I have no idea, to be honest. I mean, I assume I must have dropped it at some point. I don't know, but the second one, the lens, I actually didn't even break this one. It randomly, like, the lens just kind of, like, it made a crunching noise, and then it said, like, and then I closed it, and it wouldn't open again. It just said lens error, so I assumed dirt got in it, which, that's not really my fault, is it? I mean, I did break that camera trying to take it apart, because back then I didn't really, I wasn't really confident in fixing things. I just wanted to see how the insides of things worked, so whenever something broke, I would just take it apart, see how it works. But yeah, rip my Canon camera. Yeah, so I forgot to record an outro. Well, I mean, I recorded this one, and then I started talking about a camera for no reason. So anyways, yeah, bye.